Football is upon us, and we're so glad you're here to join us here on this weekend. Larry Smith, Brad Sturdy, Mike Kegley. We've got Patrick Quinn doing audio for us. Tony Cordero is our producer, and you are our guests. We're so happy that you're here. Appreciate your time. We have a great show coming up. We're talking a lot of Illini football on the way. Matt Stevens from IlliniGuys.com, the football writer and analyst, is alongside. He's standing by right now over here in our state-of-the-art orange room, probably grabbing some donuts here. You know, Ked's not going to be here this week, so Matt can have all he wants. The voice of the Fighting Illini, Brian Barnhart, coming up here at the bottom of the hour. Also, second hour, really great stuff. Danny Sheridan, great friend of the show, who's a veteran football analyst, nationally known. We're going to get his thoughts on the Big Ten. What about these four new teams coming in from the formerly known Pac-12? What kind of impact will they have? What's Ohio State got? Are they the favorite this year nationwide to win the title? And what about Michigan? And let's say Michigan beats Ohio State. What's Ryan Day's future? We'll ask him about that as well. Our friend Megan McEwen coming in from BTN, NBC, and, of course, the WNBA on ION. She'll talk a little women's hoops. And we've got a great interview also. Four-time New York Times bestselling author Ian O'Connor has a new book about Aaron Rodgers that we just found fascinating, and we tracked him down in an interview. He's going to join us here in the second hour of the show. So really hope you stick around for that as well. But fellas, here we go. 100 years of Memorial Stadium. It kicks off Thursday night, 8 p.m. At Memorial Stadium. If you can't make it, but you need to be there, it will be on BTN. Eastern Illinois in town. Let me just start with, and a question I ask, our other guests as well, but I want to start with you, Brad. What are you expecting out of this Illini football team Thursday night and for this entire season?
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they are able to kind of. There's so many new pieces that they're going to have to put in key places, and I think their offense. We've talked a lot about this. The offense looks really good on paper. They've got depth at wide receiver, a proven quarterback, a running back room, an offensive line is solidified. All that sounds great. Now they got to put it into practice, and they have to show that they can score consistently. And then I wonder because Eastern's going to be well coached. Eastern's going to have some talented kids, and they're going to, I know they won't have the physicality up front maybe, but they're going to use misdirection, use different things to really, I think, put the Illini defense on their heels. And if they can do that, then that's going to be scary. But so Illinois really needs to dominate on the defensive side of the ball, show they compete when they get into Big Ten play.
This is a big game because you've got a season that the schedule is tough, but it's manageable. If they struggle against Eastern, the manageable goes right out of the window, and then we go right to the panic mode. So and that's not fair to the Eastern guys. They've got a good quarterback. When Pierce Holly comes to town, he's not chopped liver. And so Illinois is going to have to play well. This is one of those classic games where if you win, everybody says, well, you're supposed to win. If you lose, the streets go crazy.
Well, and I think, too, obviously we want to get a victory here for the Illini, but at the same time, this is really important because it's the perception. And we've talked before about just trying to get to the plus side of the ledger, the wins and losses each season, and begin to stack those winning seasons. And that's something that Illinois just has not been able to do consistently. I mean, and we're going back decades, generations. This is not anything current, or it just is what it is. And for whatever reason, they haven't been able to do that. So when it starts there, when you're trying to build a fan base and trying to build a season ticket base, this is the kind of game you need to go out and win by 20 or 25 points or more. I mean, you need to go in and make it where it's not even in question. If you stumble, or if you eke one out, or if you fail, it sets the tone the rest of the season in terms of just the interest and the energy and that kind of thing. And that's where I'm really, I think it's so crucial for this team, especially this year with all the change coming up and the things they want to do to celebrate the stadium's, centennial. You've got to do that. I know we're going to talk again with Matt and Brian here in a few minutes. But I guess your thoughts on what you've seen. It's funny that it's kind of run the gamut. We have some experts who think that Illinois will be will struggle to get to 500, and others that think they've got a pretty good chance at getting a winning record and going to a bowl and beginning to build on the things that we've been talking about.
Yeah, most of the people who have been around the team and seen practice believe they're better than they thought. I mean, we've seen Matt. I mean, Matt Stevens from IlliniGuys, who believes that they're better than he probably thought. I think he's seen more. And so I think that's a good thing. I do question, the fact that there's very little margin for error with this program and with this team. They can't afford to have a bad day in a game they can win and lose that game. And so, because there are some games on their schedule where you are not looking forward to those games, and you're thinking, okay, we just got to get through this week healthy. And there's a few of those who just don't get anybody hurt. But they got to win the games they're supposed to win, and then they got to win the 50-50 games to get where they want to be. But there are 8 wins on the schedule potentially, but things have to go their way. There are also 4 wins on the schedule if things don't go their way.
Yeah, I think the other part that you hear Brett Bielema working on is the special teams work. Seems to be something where he senses the fact that you got to get to the bowl and you can't afford any muck-ups on special teams that cost you a score or a game. And I think they're working on that as well. This team has a decent amount of talent, but they don't have a ton of depth on the defense. So they don't have a lot of room for mistakes. It really puts the coaching at a premium, and players have to execute on what they're told to do. You can have the best play in the world. If nobody runs it, doesn't make any difference. So this is one of those seasons where that type of discipline that's enforced from the coaching staff down has to be effective.
Yeah. Looking forward to this again, 8:00 kickoff. It's on BTN. That's the reason for the later start than what we usually would see on a Thursday night game. But again, it's EIU at Memorial Stadium taking on the Illini. Be sure to stick with IlliniGuys.com for complete coverage leading up to, during, and after the game, as well as we look forward to the 2024 season kicking off. Meanwhile, interesting story here. Basketball again, students back on campus, and so that means that some workouts beginning, that kind of thing. We're still a couple of months away from preseason practice actually starting. But interesting survey that was done by CBSSports.com. We wanted to kind of get in the show here before we get into talking about a lot of football. And that is that some of the college basketball writers were asking some coaches to basically name the top 3 schools they thought were best situated in the NIL sphere. And Illinois was one of those teams that came up on quite a few ballots and is considered one of the elite programs when it comes to NIL. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I think on the basketball side, they've obviously done a fantastic job of bringing in players who have been talked about as being large NIL people. They've been able to go overseas and get European players. They've gotten players from Canada. They've gotten high, 5-star kids. And I think recruiting now has become a situation where now you can legally do what a lot of schools have been doing illegally for years, So I think that's where Illinois they've been successful. And so I think when you look at that and you say, well, they've been successful, then obviously that means they have a pretty good NIL program. Now, do I think they're one of the top 3 teams? No, I don't. I think, when you look at places like Ohio State and Texas and whoever, I mean, I look at what, Texas Tech gave a softball pitcher over $1 million. So that just tells you the kind of money that some of these schools are throwing around. So yeah, I wouldn't put Illinois in top 3, but I think they've done well, especially on the basketball side of being competitive in the NIL sphere.
I think it was really interesting if you look at the CBS Sports story that Arkansas was number 1, Kansas was number 2, and BYU was number 3, followed by Kentucky and Indiana. The very interesting thing to me is, if you recall back on our show quite a while ago, I talked about Arkansas was the sleeping giant amongst NIL, and basically it just took John Calipari and then a bunch of corporate leaders who are relatively a stone's throw away from Little Rock who've wanted to get involved, an opportunity to start raising a ton of money. And I think it's really interesting as to who is going to do a good job of spending it? Because Calipari hasn't hurt for talent at Kentucky, hasn't done much with it. Certainly Bill Self at Kansas isn't a surprise, but that man knows how to win. And Brad Underwood is proving that the dollars that he gets, he can translate into tournament success as well. So sometimes it's not just the gross dollars, but it's what you do with them. The other thing that was very interesting is you hear a lot of rumors around NIL, and BYU is throwing around some incredible dollar amounts for their basketball team, dollar amounts that, to be real honest with you, are out of this world. So you just don't know who wants to win and how badly some person is going to put their name to the check and try to help their team win.
It's interesting. This is a game this season of, my money is worth as much as your money. Of the top 20 on this poll, Illinois plays 6 of those teams, Arkansas being one of them, of course, the Thanksgiving Day extravaganza that's going to be in the neutral court in Kansas City after the NFL game there on Turkey Day. You're right. It's funny that Arkansas named on 74% of the ballots. To your point, what does that say about John Calipari that you wonder where would Arkansas fall without Calipari, right? That Arkansas is on 74% of the ballots, Kentucky only on 25% of the ballots.
I kind of look at, obviously Cal is a big part of that, but Arkansas does have a lot of money to throw around. Down there you've got the Walmart money, right? So you start throwing the Walton money around. That's a big chunk, and so I think that. But Calipari is able to mobilize boosters. He did it at Kentucky, and now he's doing it at Arkansas. So it's certainly not surprising to see a guy like him be able to generate a lot of NIL money.
Yeah, especially there. You've got Tyson Chicken, you've got Walmart, you've got a whole bunch of businesses there, and they've really got around Little Rock. It doesn't even look like what it used to 25 years ago. They've really turned that into quite an corporate and industrial center. And you just needed the right guy to shake the trees to get the money come out. And we know the one thing, John Calipari knows how to do that. And he's proven it again.
No question. But let me ask you this before we go to break. My money is Arkansas under Calipari still does not reach the Sweet 16. Anybody want to throw your money in on that or want to challenge me?
No, I think I'm with you. I'm with you. Now, Illinois does have the NIL that they get from the Illini guys, right? So, I mean, there's that huge amount. But I mean, other than that, that's why they're able to keep. But no, yeah. I agree with you. I don't think Cal makes the Sweet 16 this year.
The best predictor of the future is the past, and Arkansas managed to pick up a coach who didn't do as well as the guy who left in terms of postseason over the last 4 or 5 years. It is what it is, but Cal is certainly going to go down swinging or maybe making it rain. It may not get a lot of victories.
Down spending. He will go down spending, Mike.
Yeah, I just look nothing against John. He's done nothing to me personally, and I'm not trying to bust on him, but I go back to you leave the program that has more advantages than any other program in college basketball, and yet you have one tournament win since COVID, right? And in the middle of that, the worst season Kentucky had since the Great Depression. Yet you're going to leave that situation to go to Arkansas, and all of a sudden you become a winner again. Ding. I don't think it works like that. All right, we will end that conversation. Quick time out right here, and then much more here on the Sports Spectacular, powered by IlliniGuys.com. Matt Stevens is on board, followed by Brian Barnhart. Big time show as we get ready for Illini football. Just days away right now. Stay with us. You're listening to the Illini Guys Radio Network.